Hi, Claire and James here. Just before we get stuck into this week's episode, we wanted to let you know the exciting news that the Midlife Reset audit is now live. This is a first of its kind personalised diagnostic tool designed for midlifers by midlifers.
In just 3 minutes, the audit will help you pinpoint what's really holding you back from living your healthiest, happiest midlife, and most importantly, provide tailored strategies on how to take back control. Midlife doesn't have to be a time of uncertainty. It can be an era of growth, discovery, and well-being. So to go ahead and take the audit, go to themidlifementors.com/audit.
In this episode, we discussed the concept of time and how we spend it. In particular, how we're in endless pursuit of trying to be productive, only to feel like we're failing. The truth is, there will always be more to do, and there'll be always things that you can't achieve.
Accepting that we are limited beings and deciding to focus on what's truly meaningful is where we can begin to experience peace. We also chat about the importance of taking time out to daydream and avoid the pull of constant distractions that only serve to leave us empty. We hope you enjoy this one as much as we enjoyed recording it.
Hi, I'm James Davis.
And I'm Claire Davis.
We're the Midlife Mentors, here to lift the lid on how to achieve health and happiness.
The balanced, no-nonsense way.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Midlife Mentors with me, James.
And me, Claire. I'm a little bit snotty. I've had a cold.
Both a little bit. We've both had summer colds.
Oh, you certainly didn't have it as bad as me.
Never do, because I've got a much stronger immune system, young lady.
You didn't have it as bad as me. No, I've been a bit man down with the old sinuses, and the most annoying thing is I've lost my sense of taste and smell. So I'm actually more upset about the fact that I can't taste my food because I love my food.
I was going to make a joke about your smell, but I won't.
No, don't make a joke about smells. Anyway, how are you all? We were just saying, what have we been up to? I think I've been a bit boring. I don't think I've been up to much. You've been quite a busy bee.
I've been busy. Lots of things going on in the background.
The irons in fires.
Lots of irons in the fire that aren't ready to pull out and wave around yet. But when I can, I will.
You will wave them about.
I will wave them around. Other than that, been pretty chilled. But we did some typical English pastime of going to the home of cricket, Lords, and watching some cricket last weekend, which was lovely.
That was good. That's when I started feeling a bit poorly, though.
Yeah, it was.
But it was nice sitting in the sunshine. It was very, very British.
And you're just about to head off for a little bit of retreat time down in the wilds of Devon, aren't you?
I am. Just a bit, like 10 days of it. It's going to be very exciting. And this is kind of partly
linked
why...
to this podcast,
It is linked to this podcast because I am taking... 10 to 12 days out, basically, where I am having solitude. I'm switching off completely from my phone, my laptop, and just being with myself. And this kind of really leads on to really some books that I've been reading and, my own personal kind of experiences and what I'm being pulled to do in my own life. And I think this podcast is going to be covering really something we've called the joy of missing out.
I love that.
Yeah, the joy of missing out rather than FOMO, which is the fear of missing out. We're going to be talking about the joy of missing out, and it'll kind of make sense as we go through this. But it's really been born out of a couple of amazing books that I've read recently. One is called 4,000 Weeks, and one is called Stolen Focus. And I suppose this podcast is a bit of a blend of those and what I've read and I've been sharing with James. And I think it's really, really helpful in today's crazy world. It's getting crazier. Is it not, people? Is it not getting crazier and crazy? It's definitely ramped up here on the crazy levels in the UK. I think this is more and more important that we talk about this.
Yeah, I guess, you've got that macro level, the world is crazy, but I think also when this is coming out now, August, I think a lot of people will be kind of feeling a bit overwhelmed maybe with work goes a bit slower. It's hard to get anyone to do anything. You might have kids off school. You're trying to work with them. Your routines are all out of whack. You can feel like you might have to do certain stuff to keep the family amused, whatever. And we can get caught up in this endless pursuit of trying to be productive and efficient. and we end up just feeling overwhelmed instead. So I think it's very timely, actually, Claire. Very timely.
Yeah, and I do. And I think that's correct. I think we've got so much stress from external sources. I mean, none of us are immune to this. I found myself kind of really being dragged into certain, levels of outrage about certain stuff that's going on here in the UK at the moment, in the world. And that can cause a massive amount of stress. And that's where you have to kind of pull yourself back and be resilient and be grounded in yourself. But also, like James kind of alluded to there, it's very, very stressful just being in the world right now, existing in the world, from the kind of micro stresses that we have. We're, especially us Gen Xers, we are called Generation Squeeze. We've got a huge amount of pressures. We're still climbing the career ladder. We've got financial pressures. We've got children. They might be young, but they might have also, you might be an empty nester. That's another whole kind of transition for you. Got aging parents. There is so much demand on our senses, on our stress levels, and on our time. And so this is kind of like talking a little bit about time and how we look at time in a bit of a different way.
Yeah, so let's look at first, I guess, about our modern obsession with time. And it is modern, because I think the first mechanical timepieces that were widespread would have been in church towers, 14th, 15th century, but it wasn't really until the Industrial Revolution that time became this thing that we really measured and everyone adhered to, which, we're talking a couple of 100 years ago, right? Before then, I think if you lived in the country in particular, you would have been very much more in flow with the seasons and with the day, sunrise, sunset. You wouldn't have been looking at a clock and going, oh, what time is this? What time is that? So Industrial Revolution, obviously there was a need to standardize everything, put systems in place, processes in place. And that's when time became a commodity, really. And that's then, I think, when it became obsession for people. And then we start to feel this pressure of like, oh, not to waste it. Probably because we're spending so much time doing stuff we don't actually really want to be doing, right? So then when we have our, in inverted commas, free time, and we feel like, oh, we need to be fitting more in. We need to be worthwhile by doing more. And we feel panicked into using it effectively. But actually, arguably, what we want to do is, still have goals and go for them, but be comfortable taking that step back and that time out because it's so needed. We talked before about being in the fertile void, for example, and not enough people do that.
Yeah, and I think socially, just when we're bombarded with social media, the internet, just being our phones being constantly on, we're seeing other people being, in inverted commas, productive and getting loads of stuff done and basically being superhuman. And we kind of somehow feel flawed if we can't get more and more done. And here's the thing, and also we kind of feel quite panicked about time. If you think about your relationship with time right now, is it a good one? Do you feel like you've got plenty of time, or do you constantly feel like you're battling with it? Time has almost become this enemy that we want to control. And we constantly want to have more of it to get more done. But there is never a point where you get it all done. Doesn't matter how much time you would ever have, you would always, especially in today's world, always constantly want to keep filling it. So the myth is, if I had more time, I would get all of this done. You wouldn't. There would always be something else in your life that you would fill that with or want to do with the extra time that you had. So it's very much about kind of really stepping back. This is what we're going to kind of talk about, is stepping back and realizing that we are limited beings. We are limited in the amount of time that we have here on earth, and we are limited with the amount that we can do with that time. And that level of surrender and acceptance to the reality of that kind of allows us to stop trying to control it, stop trying to do everything, stop trying to feel like we're not good enough because we're not getting as much done as that person on social media where we're comparing ourselves to everyone else.
I'm going to throw a curveball in here, actually, because I think it's really interesting.
I could see you were thinking about something.
I'm going to talk about the difference between Newtonian and Einsteinian time.
Ooh.
So, Newton, grandfather of physics, came up with like time is an absolute, right? And it passes the same for everyone. So it's a unit of measurement, it passes the same for everyone. Einstein came up with the theory of relativity, that time actually passes relative to our experience. And I think we all have experience of this. So, when you're in a really pleasurable situation, that time can seem to last for ages. Sometimes as well when we're in a really like boring or dull situation. Was this ever going to end? That time period maybe it's an hour. Let's say that unit of measurement is an hour. But if you were to measure that unit of that hour relative to someone else that was doing something, you'd find that your time lasted much longer. So we've all had experience of time being relative. I think the point is here, yes, we have an absolute amount of hours, days, weeks on the planet, but how do we want to use our time relative to our experience?
Yeah, sorry, we're kind of going a bit all over the place here, but bear with us.
No, it is.
No, I'm not
there.
actually. I was referring to what I'm about to say as well, actually. So, you know, we can really be in flow. So this is something that 4,000 Weeks talks about in the book. We can really be in flow and time really slows down. So if you're involved in like a painting, or you are on the top of a mountain and you're looking at, you know, this amazing view, often it feels quite spiritual. And there'll be moments actually that we look back over our life and kind of remember those moments where we felt very, very in flow and very connected with, I suppose, our soul, connected with something bigger than ourselves. But here's the thing, when we're rushing around constantly creating a to-do and trying to fill our to-do list and tick it all off, we lose that sense of flow. And one of the really interesting things that I think is really coming out for me at the moment personally, and really resonated when I read the book 4,000 Weeks, is actually we were told off at school, right, for not being really productive. If we were daydreaming, we were told off at school. You know, oh, Claire, she's a real daydreamer at the back. And actually, you know, we've created this kind of lie where if you're not listening to a podcast, if you're not reading a book, if you're not doing a course, if you're not bettering yourself, you're somehow losing that time and not being productive enough. But actually, you know, science now, and this has come from brain scans as well, you know, when we look at the brain, when it's actually not doing anything and it can go off and daydream, the brain lights up in a really different way and starts to make beautiful, creative connections that you don't give yourself space to create when you're constantly distracting yourself with all these other things. And you might be thinking, this is great that I'm learning all this from a podcast. It's great that I'm learning all this from a book. It's great that I'm learning all this from a course. But none of us are giving ourselves enough time to daydream, in which case those connections, that creativity, the links between things in your brain can drop in. But we can't do that if we're constantly filling our head with stuff.
Yeah.
And these brain scans, it talks a little bit about this in 4,000 Weeks, where this guy did the brain scans and he was looking at productivity and what happens in the brain, how it lights up with productivity. But actually it was completely coincidental that as he left the people that he was doing the research on, when they were just daydreaming, he was like, oh my goodness, look what's happened to their brain when they're just daydreaming. Really fascinating stuff.
It is really fascinating. This is, I think, something for listeners to reflect on, right? Because always think, this is a personal view only, but I think a sure sign that you've fallen into this FOMO space and you need to always do is like, next time you actually have free time, next time you have that free time, just reflect, you know, are you happy to slide into that free time and think, what would I really like to do? What would light me up? Or is it like, I'm reaching for distractions. All right, I'm going to watch this thing. I'm going to get on my phone. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And it's a very subtle difference, but just try to be aware of it and reflect on that. So that if you are like, right, I need to fill that time, it's almost like a fear of being alone with yourself and then indulging in what you want to do. And actually, that's what we should be doing. I hate that word should, but that's what would be probably better for us because it's about that kind of neural recovery, I think. So I'd urge you to reflect on that. You know, are you rushing in to fill free time with stuff that's distraction? Or are you actually taking a pause, taking a beat and going, what would really light me up? What do I want to do with this time? Yeah,
and I think that's what I'm about to go and embark on tomorrow is I'm very, very aware that I want to take that step back. I'm very blessed that I can. I'm very blessed that James is supportive of that. But actually, I need to take a step back and allow myself to completely switch off from distractions because I've noticed it's almost like I've become super, super aware of my habits around technology. And I know that they are designed to make me addicted to them. And I really, really don't want that for myself. It actually makes me quite cross and angry with myself, but I shouldn't be, and none of us should be, because the algorithms, everything has been designed to keep you on there, to keep you scrolling, to keep you completely attached, because they need eyeballs on the social media in order to make money. It's actually their business model to make you addicted. Mm-hmm. So for me, I'm like, I don't like that. I really don't like that, and I don't know what the solution is, but I do know the first step for me is to take away the distractions. And I tell you, I swear, I'm going to find this very uncomfortable. I know that I'm going to really want to go for all the distractions I can, but actually I've set myself up already for success, hopefully, fingers crossed, that I'm not going to, I've told when James can get hold of me, when my parents can get hold of me at certain times. There's only 3 times during the time I'm away. I've told them the times. And I've kind of set boundaries around what that looks like. And I'm just, hoping and praying that I'm able to kind of settle into it. But I'm very, very committed to doing this. But James is right. We're full of distractions. We can't feel our own soul. Like, we can't feel our own self and our own creativity. It's almost like we've lost ourselves in the hubbub of everything.
Yeah. From our time away, we went to the Shepherd's Hut. And
yes.
I actually like to think about, and this might be helpful for people, like the difference between feeling that you should read a non-fiction book or just allowing yourself to read a fiction book for the pure joy of it.
You read a lot of fiction, don't you?
All the time. I mean, I think it's becoming a lost art, sadly, but I love reading. Again, neural imaging shows that our brains light up in a different way when we read, because we're actually creating the world that we see in the pages in our minds. So I think it's really important to read. It's something that's been in mankind for centuries now.
Well, actually, really interestingly, out of the book Stolen Focus, he was saying that actually it is a lost art. It's exactly what James has just said. It is a lost art. And the thing about fiction is it helps us, because we're putting ourselves in the perspective of the different characters, we actually have more empathy. So empathy is actually is something that's being lost through the lost art of reading fiction. So really interesting that James reads it. I've actually really been very conscious of what I'm focusing on when I'm reading. I'm very conscious now of making sure that I've not also got my phone sitting there, when I'm just trying to be very, very conscious about my focus as well. So yeah, just to kind of wrap this up, I suppose, we want you to kind of embrace that joy of missing out. That's why we called it this. We want you to embrace the joy of not getting everything done, to take the pressure off and stop trying to control the outcomes. If there is always, just to reiterate, there is always going to be things. And this is the sadness, this is the pain and the sadness and the loss of the human experience. There is a plethora of things that we could do with our life, and we're going to be able to do a few % of that. And that creates a lot of inertia, I think, for some people, because they're like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do this. What we need to do is work out what is the most fulfilling way that we can live our lives. Not the busiest, but what will bring the most meaning to our lives, and do that, and quit the expectation as well. Accept that we have finite time. Accept and surrender that those other things that you might want to get done in your life might get lost. But the thing you need to do really is really make those choices around what is most meaningful to you. And that's a journey. That's not necessarily something you're going to come up with off this podcast and go, oh yeah, I'm going to do this because it's most meaningful to you. But really holding that consciously of what is of most meaning is really important. And I don't know whether you want to talk about mortality as motivation, because this is something I do a lot now.
So yeah, this comes back to, obviously having absolute time. Like, our time on the earth is finite. So if we're to go live to 80 years old, we've got 4,000 weeks. That's where the book 4,000 Weeks comes from. So, you can kind of work out how many weeks you have left, and you could kind of try and take a guess, like, how many of those weeks will actually be quality weeks in terms of your health and ability to do things. Once you've done that, what's really important to you?
Ask yourself. Yeah.
Ask yourself, what would you choose? And this is it. It's choose to do more of and to do less of. I think that's a really good place just to leave you to reflect on that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I do think it's so, so powerful. you know, like, we don't want to think about our own mortality. But, you know, I know the Stoicism really, really makes us look at the reality that our time is finite, and to think about the fact that, yeah, we have those 4,000 weeks. We live to 80 years old. We have those 4,000 weeks. What would be the most fulfilling way? Is it running around like a headless chicken like you are right now? Doing these, are they meaningful? Are they meaningless? Are they things that you really, really want in your life? And if not, what are you going to do about it? So what do you want to do more of, and what do you want to do less of? So I hope you found that helpful. I'm going to put the links to the show notes. Links in the show notes to both of those books, 4,000 Weeks and Stolen Focus. Just, you know, you might want to have a read, and this will make a bit more sense to you, I'm sure. They go into a lot more detail, obviously. But as always, we would love to know your thoughts on this. Share what's insights you've had out of this, and if you have any ideas, any thoughts on podcast subjects, please always let us know at team@themidlifementors.com.
Okay, till next time.
See you then. Bye.
Yeah. You've been listening to the Midlife Mentors with Claire and James Davis.
We'd love to hear from you, so drop us a line at info@themidlifementors.com with any questions or topic suggestions.
And make sure you join us on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. You can find us under the Midlife Mentors. Yeah. What? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode, and don't forget to take the Midlife Reset Audit now to receive personalised insights into what's holding you back from living your healthiest, happiest midlife. So go ahead and take the audit now at themidlifementors.com/audit.